Tammy shouts, Joe, come take your place. Laughs. Luna says, Yoop, sorry, laughing out loud. Tamara whispers, maybe I should have worn a dress, but they're itchy.
Callisto says, laughs no problem, Luna XD.
Luna says, I tried to sit next to you, ha ha ha.
Callisto says, yet auto changes to couples XD.
Corlink says, female poses only. Tammy says, not a good time to lag.
Tiny says, can click swap I think and get a new menu for other side of seat.
Kita says, you can change it after but enjoy the warm set while you can. Ori says, tell. Luna says, so pretty, Cora. Tammy says, yes. Tina says, ho. Phew again. Tammy says, lol. Minnie says, if Joe is having tech issues, I can stand in as his representative. Tammy says, Adrianna, hold on. Almost there. Letty says, the nerves, we hope the bride can make it till the end of the ceremony. Corlink says, few more steps, Adri.
Callisto says, she looks beautiful.
Minnie says, the he is.
Joseph says, holy lag shit.
Minnie says, I think. Letty says, language.
Freya says, languish, you're at a wedding, Joseph.
Tina says, he is nervous too, Letty. Corlink says, 38 peeps. Minnie says, lower your draw distance to minimum, Joe.
Joseph says, excuse the shit out of me, laughing out loud. Darkflower says, "Okay, Joe, enough of that."
Jack says, caresses Shannon's forehead.
Joseph says, "Yeah."
Tina gives Adrianna a kiss on the cheek and steps back. Letty kisses the cheek of her beloved daughter. "I wish you the best, dear." Adrianna says, smiles and glances shyly at Yaspe. "Thank you."
Joseph says, smiles at his bride-to-be.
Tammy says, "Get closer to her, Joe."
Darkflower says, "We shall begin."
Soriel subtly wipes a tear as he smiles, beautiful.
Tammy says, "Eep."
Anna Catwist says, wipes Shannon's mouth.
Letty whispers at her Okayasin, "They grow so fast." Sniff, sniff. Corlink says, "Stunning bride." Adrianna says, smiles. Tammy says, "We." Zara smiles to Adrianna.
Darkflower says, "We are gathered here today to join in marriage. Lady Adrianna of the Valkyrie and Lord Joseph of Paradise Bay."
Tina puts a supportive arm around Air Daughter to comfort her.
Darkflower says, to unite them, to bond them to each other. Who gives away Lady Adrianna today?
Letty fixes her makeup as tears make a feast on her face. Tina says, "We do." Letty says, "We do." Fyra holds Tam and Logan.
Darkflower says, smiles.
Tina says, "Her mother and grandmother." Adrianna says, smiles.
Darkflower says, in life it is rare for two souls to become one. Indeed, fit perfect together today. We have such a pair.
Anna Catwis says, rocks Shannon to caten her. Quieten asterisk.
Munger tosses duct tape.
Anna Catwis says, glares at Munger.
Darkflower says, do you, Adrianna, take Lord Joseph to be your husband, to be bonded to him, to be with him in sickness and in health?
Letty says, oh no.
Darkflower says, to be with him in good and bad times, defend with him and defend him.
Anna Catwis says, what a time to crash.
Adrianna says, I do. Letty bites her nails. Minnie says, Lag doesn't want it to happen.
Danae says, huh.
Fyra says, I bet they will have 8 kids. Tammy says, P.
Darkflower says, Snickers hearing the comments.
Minnie says, with 7 sons. Tamara Winson and murmurs, that's a lot of kids.
Darkflower says, do you, Joseph, take Lady Adrianna to be your wife, to be bonded to be with her in sickness and in health? To be within good time and bad, to defend with her and to defend her.
Letty says, to protect her and respect her?
Joseph says, I do.
Tina elbows Letty. Minnie looks around the crowd with one eyebrow raised. That means 7 brides for 7 brothers. Letty says, I could not help but to add.
Callisto says, chuckles, with a smile.
Adrianna says, smiles.
Darkflower says, it is customary to give the couple blessed swords in which to defend each other with.
Tina eyes widen.
Darkflower opens a box, giving each one a blessed sword.
Tamara whispers they got to sword fight?
Joseph accepts the shroud.
Adrianna says, hands Joe her sword point down and hilt upright.
Joseph says, asterisk sword.
Letty says, maybe give them some shackles too, just in case? Adrianna says, takes her sword.
Darkflower says, looks at Letty with a pissed off look. Asterisk Letty.
Corlink says, ready to trip him up if he runs. Letty zips her lips.
Anna Catwist says, touches my collar.
Adrianna says, smiles at the tiny little coughs.
Darkflower says, also Tractional is a band, symbolizing the never-ending love and devotion for each other. If you will please present your rings to each other, Joseph, you first. Joseph says, opens a small pouch, pulls out a ring, taking her HND.
Letty signals the band to play music. Adrianna says, smiles.
Joseph says, with this band, there is no beginning and no end. I plaque it on your finger, symbolizing my love and devotion to my bride. Joseph places ring on finger.
Corling says, surprised face.
Darkflower says, Adrianna your Tron. Dene says, hums here comes the bride to self. Darkflower says, turn.
Adrianna says, smiles and blinks away tears.
Jack says, huggles Annie and Shannon a little closer.
Letty says, she should put a flower crown on his sword to choose him as her champion like the old days. Tammy says, Tina elbows Letty again. Letty bites her lips.
Anna Catwist says, feels Shannon's nappy and looks concerned.
Adrianna says, Asterisk takes a ring from her bouquet. Asterisk, let this ring declare my love and devotion to you, Joseph, and our union. Slides it onto Joe's finger.
Tiny, who's got tissues, he says, tears streaming down his face.
Anna Catwist says, are tiny. Hands him a baby wipe.
Blossom laughs.
Jack says, sniffs the air, whispers, she left us a gift.
Kita hand Tiny a tissue. Corling says, surprised face.
Tiny thanks Asterisk, sniffles Asterisk.
Darkflower says, ordained by the mighty All-Father, I pronounce you husband and wife.
Tammy says, yay. Adrianna says, smiles.
Darkflower says, kiss your bride.
Letty says, yay. Tammy says, claps. Tina claps, yay.
Tiny shouts, yay woohoo.
Soriel applauds loudly.
Tammy says, yay. Kita says, applause. Yay, woot woot. Tammy says, kiss kiss kiss.
Freya says, claps.
Ashley says, congratulations, a very beautiful ceremony.
Anna Catwist says, hearts. Applause. Hearts.
Jack says, yay.
Tina says, congrats Adrianna and Joseph.
Jack says, yay.
Adrianna says, smiles and kisses Joseph.
Jack says, yay.
Zluna says, applause.
Jack says, yay.
Fyra says, yay.
Jack says, yay.
Anna Catwist says, congrats to you both.
Zluna says, applause.
Crystal says, congrats.
Minnie says, asterisk apoe asterisk. Asini shouts it. Corling says, it's official?
Callisto says, claps congratulations, smiley face. Blossom says, yay.
Tamara says, me giggles cookies.
Carmen says, yay.
Jack says, yay.
Letty says, you make us so proud, Adrianna.
Jack says, yay. Why? Yeah. Yay.
Corling says, crying face.
Jack says, yay.
Adrianna says, thank you. Tina says, you really do G-daw.
Balaam says, congrats my mistress.
Anna Catwist says, master, throw confetti.
Eris says, yay.
Tammy says, cookies laughing out loud.
Nalasso says, hurrah.
Anna Catwist says, not cookies.
Ori says, applause. Adrianna says, thank you all.
Jack says, yay.
Tamara says, congrats. Coralink says, can't hold back the tears.
Darkflower says, congrats to the both of you.
Coralink says, crying face. Ori says, congratulations.
Nalasso says, congratulations.
Coralink says, yay. Tamara grabs one of the cookies to give to Logan.
Darkflower says, now makes lots of babies. P4.
Coralink says, yay. Zara says, congratulations. Kita says, well then congratulations. Or, whatever they say in situations like these. Coralink says, yay.
BJ says, yay master AMD mistress.
Adrianna says, smiling wipes her eyes with a slick hanky. Minnie says, asterisk apoe asterisk.
Tiny says, grats Adrian Joe.
Coralink says, yay. Sluna says, hoo-ho. Adrianna says, we did it.
Joseph says, thank you all.
Soriel says, congratulations.
Joseph says, lag and all.
Adrianna says, thank you all.
Joseph says, there's a reception in the Great Hall soon as the DJ gets here.
Coralink says, best wishes for the newlyweds. Fyra says /co-release.
Tiny says, got married and slayed the lag monster all in one go.
Minnie says, DJ is here.
Soriel says, i.gyazzo.com link, laughing face.
Tamara giggles and boops Fyra's nose.
Anna Catwist says, looks at Jack, you never said nice words to me when you put my kular around my neck.
Darkflower says, wish I could stay for it, but I need to go. Laughing out loud, congrats, Agan.
Adrianna says, I think that's what the swords are for, to slay the lag monster. Fyra says, Tamra, she murmured.
Joseph says, see ya and thanks, Lotus.
Anna Catwist says, but then I was unconscious at the time.
Nalasso says, congratulations, but I have to go.
Anna Catwist says, the asterisk.
Nalasso says, I wish you a good day.
Coralink says, thank you, Darkflower. Fyra says, pour in. Letty says, I wish you the best, dear. Be happy. Tamara giggling, what? I'm behaving.
Logan says, Annie.
Jack says, yes, I bloody did.
Fira whispers, Fira uguobe. Anna Catwist says, smirks.
Logan says, no. Joseph says, okay, our DJ is here. Off to the hall.
Fyra whispers, Logan, if you don't behave, no cookies for a weir. Tina says, do we start drinking now?
Jack says, waves over to Logan.
Anna Catwist says, covers Shannon's ears.
Joseph says, yes, liquor in the hall. Logan says, unkai.
Fyra says, all the liquor paid by Joe.
Anna Catwist says, milk only for Shannon.
Fyra says, and now Adri.
Joseph says, come, my dear, let's make it to the hall.
Jack says, hugs and kisses Tam.
Balaam says, congrats my mistress and new master.
Tina says, I am putting a gift donation cauldron in the reception hall for anyone who wants to help the happy couple. Fyra says, Shannon can have a little Kalana, I think. She is what like too.
Jack says, gives Logan a forehead kiss and a cheek pinch.
Anna Catwist says, burp.
Tamara boops Jack's nose.
Freya says, Tina, you're but got bigger.
Anna Catwist says, Shannon.
Jack says, hey Yisa.
Tina says, thank you, Freya.
Anna Catwist says, honesty.
Tammy says, toss the flowers now so we can see who gets married next.
Jack says, ain't been booped in a while.
Tamara says, no, Shannon can't have alcohol either.
Freya says, you're welcome, haha.
Adrianna says, giggles. Fyra holds out a bottle of red stuff to and give her this.
Anna Catwist says, nope.
Fyra says, why not? Tina says, don't anyone act in my way of catching those flowers.
Anna Catwist says, shakes head.
Logan says, baby.
Fira says, kids love grapes.
Anna Catwist says, yes, Logan, it's a baby. Baby asterisk.
Tamara smirkin' no giving kids liquor. Fira says, Adri will have lots of those.
Jack says, yes, Logan. It's a no tail.
Tammy says, laughing out loud Tina. Letty says, I wish you all well and I wish the couple all the best.
Anna Catwist says, what?
Logan says, Andy.
Tina says, love you, Letty.
Joseph says, off to the Great Hall we go.
Ballum says, hi.
Letty says, love you too, my Okayasin. Corling says, yay. Tammy says, yay.
Blossom says, yay. Carmen says, yay.
Tamara giggles, all the cookies we can eat.
Anna Catwist says, yay.
Jack says, yay.
Anna Catwist says, yay.
Jack says, okay, cookies all gone.
Luna says, well.
Anna Catwist says, grumbles.
Fira says, no cookies for Logan.
Anna Catwist says, shush Shannon.
Fira says, he needs kalana. Tamara says, no, he needs cookies.
Jack says, wonderful to meet you, sister-in-law, smiles to Fira offering a hand.